Good evening. Welcome to the May 3rd meeting of the Lowell License Commission. Secretary Nguyen, was the meeting posted?
Yes.
Number one, please.
Starting with minutes, we have meetings held April the 12th and also April 26th. I prepared minutes for those commission to review.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend approval, given the insertion that Mr. Nguyen has provided to us for the 12 April minutes, page 6, line 21, providing a little clarification on the issue.
I'll second that. Motion by Commissioner Krieger for the, concerning the amendment to the minutes. It was seconded by Commissioner McCarthy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
So any further recommendations on minutes for the 12th and the 26th? Okay. Okay. Proceeding with the application on special one-day license to dispense wines only. Is Steve Syverson here? Proceeding with number 2, applications for special one-day license to sell, dispense malt beverages and wines only, or either one. First, we have Gregory T. Curtis for the Greek Festival, which is Friday, May 18th from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday, May 19th from 12 noon to 11 p.m., and Sunday, May 20th, 2018, from 12 noon to 6 p.m. at the enclosed outdoor area on Worthing Street, adjacent to the Hellenic American Academy at 41 Broadway. We also have Sue Ellen Feltrin of the Holy Family Parish for an event at Holy Trinity Parish at 340 High Street, this being a Mother's Day dinner for Saturday, May 12th, from 7:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Also, we have Joanne Gumby of the Gormley's Cafe at 139 East Merrimack Street. This is a Mother's Day fundraiser for ovarian cancer patients. This will be Saturday, May 12, 2018, and Sunday, May 13, 2018. Each day, the hours would be 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Is Mr. and Mrs. Feltrin or Ms. Gumby here? Can you just approach the lectern? State your name for the record, Counsel.
Gregory Curtis with the Hellenic Orthodox Church in Lowell, 62 Lewis Street.
Thank you.
Joanne Gunby with Gormley's Cafe.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi.
And Sue Ellen Feltrin of the Holy Family and Holy Trinity Parish.
Thank you. Greg, tell us about your event.
Well, this is the third year we've had the event. It's held in the rear of the Hellenic American Academy in the parking area in the rear. It's been a great success over the years, and we serve food, beer, and wine. We have some music, and it's a 3-day event. It's done very well in the past, brings a lot of people in the area together, and we're very proud of it. So we're going to try to do a great event. Hopefully the weather's good. We have a tent, and we're looking. I'll be there all 3 days. I'll be overseeing all the beer and wine during those 3 days while it's going on, and I think it's going to be hopefully a very successful event as it has been in the past.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sulin, have you had this license before?
Not myself personally,
You have not?
no.
Do you understand your responsibilities with this license?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions for this board at all?
I have done liquor, like selling liquor before, and
You
I've
have?
always served.
Okay.
in
If you do have any questions,
Yes, sir.
please use Secretary Nguyen as a resource, okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right, Joanne, I believe you've held this license before, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. A little Bloody Mary at,
Well, we won't be able to do Bloody Marys because it's only beer and wine.
oh, that's
But
right.
we'll be doing mimosas and sangria, and we will have some craft beers.
Commissioner McCarthy will not be there then. Captain Webb, any problems with any of these licenses?
We don't have any concerns, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Motion by Commissioner McCarthy, seconded by Commissioner Howe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Enjoy and success.
Thank you.
Very much.
We also have a application by Greg Curtis for the Holy Trinity Hellenic Orthodox Church for a special events permit for amplified outdoor public entertainment. This will be a sound system for live music and a DJ for the Greek Festival for Friday, May 18th, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday, May 19th, 12 noon to 11 p.m., and Sunday, May 20th, from 12 noon to 6 p.m. Again, it's the enclosed outdoor area on Worthing Street adjacent to the Hellenic American Academy, 41 Broadway.
Motion by Commissioner Donahue, seconded by Commissioner Krieger. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, motion carries. Mr. Curtis?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Commission will now proceed with the hearing continued from April 12, 2018 on the allegation of misconduct as charged by William M. Taylor, the Superintendent of Police. In a communication that was dated March 5, 2018 against the restaurant licensee for all alcoholic beverages, LD Holdings LLC, doing business as Bar 74, Lounge and Grill, 7678 Merrimack Street, David E. Healy, manager, Lauren DeSalva, owner. This was an incident that took place on March the 4th, 2018.
Okay, as was the case at last meeting, upon advice from City Solicitor's Office, I will be recusing myself from items number 4 and 5. However, sometime during this week, when I opened up my mailbox, I had a subpoena in my mailbox, and I believe Mr. Jacobs would like to ask me a few questions, and I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You can have a seat and put your microphone on, Counsel.
Thank you. I'm used to standing up in court. When we were here on April 12th, Mr. Jacobs had presented a police report, which he contended had been provided by the solicitor's office, which had redactions in it, which kept him from interviewing potential witnesses.
Okay, Counselor, if I may, and then you can correct me, but I recuse myself from this item, so I'd rather not hear any of that, and I would ask you to present that to Commissioner
After you.
Krieger, because I was not part of what you're
Fair enough.
stating. So I'm going to let Attorney Jacobs ask me a few questions, if he'd like.
Thank you, sir. I apologize for the inconvenience.
Not an inconvenience at all.
Can you tell me when you first relayed information about Mr. Healy's status as manager of record to Captain Webb?
I'm not sure I know what date it was.
Can you give was it in March or April?
I really can't pinpoint a date, Counselor. I'm sorry.
Was it?
I get numerous calls from citizens concerning accusations about different establishments in the city that I give Captain Webb a call on.
Do you recall the hearing that you presided over on March 22nd, where Mr. Webb Captain Webb first raised the issue of Mr. Healy potentially not being the manager of record?
I don't recollect that.
You don't recollect that hearing?
I don't recollect that, what Captain Webb, what you had just stated, Captain Webb has stated.
When you told Mr. Webb about Mr. Healy's questionable manager of record status, how did you do it? What medium of communication did you use?
I'm not sure how, I think I might have called the station, I might have called station. Not sure, though.
And what did you tell him exactly?
that I had received a phone call from a citizen that they believed that Mr. Healy was not the current man, was not the manager of record for a few months at Bar 74, and that I should look into it. And usually what I do on occasions like that is I will give Captain Webb a call.
And other than Captain Webb, did you inform anyone else at the Lowell Police Department about that?
No.
Who gave you the information?
Who gave me the information?
Correct. Who was the person who called you?
A concerned citizen.
And what was his or her name?
I'm going to ask the Assistant City Solicitor, do I need to provide a name? I don't.
Well, why would you need to ask the city solicitor if you need to provide it if you could not recall?
I don't know his last name, that's why.
What's his first name?
Dave,
Dave.
yeah.
Do you know someone named Mike Renkricka? Renkricka?
I knew who he is, yes.
You knew or you know who he is?
I know who he is.
You know who he is?
Yes, I do.
What's your relationship to him?
I actually was his coach in Little League.
And other than his coach in Little League, did you have any other relationship with him?
I do not.
Are you friends with him?
No.
Are you friends with his parents?
No, I'm not.
And how long have you known Mr. Renkricka? Am I pronouncing that right?
I'm not sure if that's a pronunciation or not.
You don't know if that's the correct pronunciation?
Of his last name.
Okay.
I believe it's Renkricka.
And was it Mr. Renkricka that told you about the questionable status of Mr. Healy's manager of record?
No. I
Or
just
someone-
told you the name was Dave.
Okay. And you can't recall Dave's last name?
That's correct.
And how did you receive this information?
I don't recall.
So you don't recall if it was a phone call or a text message or an email or anything like that?
Like I said, Attorney Jacobs, I received many calls and even on the street from people that asked me to follow through in certain rumors that may happen in some of our establishments throughout the city.
So did you consider this to be a rumor?
I didn't consider it to be anything other than I wanted the Lowell Police Department to follow through. If in fact that was the case, that's an egregious act.
Did you suggest that Captain Webb do anything specific with this information?
No.
Did Captain Webb tell you that he intended to do anything with this information?
No.
Did you tell Captain Webb where
I
you...
assume the Captain Webb follows through on everything that I send him or email him.
How often do you pass along information like rumors or information like about a licensee like this to Captain Webb?
In what time frame?
In the last 6 months?
6 months? Probably half a dozen.
Do you know if Mr. Renkricka ever worked at Bar 74?
I believe he did. I believe he did.
And have you ever spoken to Mr. Renkricka about Bar 74?
About Bar 74, no. No. I know that he worked there because I was at a birthday party and he had mentioned that he had worked there. I didn't know if he was still working there. So,
You didn't know that he had been terminated?
oh, I didn't know that, no.
Did you know, you didn't know why he had been terminated?
No.
Other than the issue about Mr. Healy being the manager of record, have you previously relayed any other information about LD Holdings, Bar 74, or Revolution to Captain Webb or anyone else at the Lowell Police Department?
I'm not sure if it was Captain Webb. It might have been Captain Kennedy, and I'm not even sure if it was even Revolution, but I do remember that there was a complaint concerning that the bar bottles were nasty, and that I told Captain Webb, and I believe I might have even sent or called Mr. Shanahan at the City of Lowell to look into that. But other than that, I can't recall anything else with those two establishments.
That the what was nasty?
The bar bottles, they hadn't been cleaned.
The bar bottles.
Liquor,
And
that's what they serve there.
like they were dusty?
I would assume so.
And do you recall approximately when you referred that piece of information?
I can't recall, no.
Was it 6 months ago?
It was more than that. It had to be
More
more
than
than that.
6 months ago?
More than that, absolutely.
And do you know whether that report resulted in any kind of investigation or violation of the licensee?
Like I said, it might not have been Revolution. I'm sure Secretary Wynn could look it up, but I believe it was brought in front of this board, maybe before it was Revolution, that the Mr. Shanahan's department had gone through there and cited a few code violations, but I'm not so sure.
Is it possible that that was the March 3rd incident, the very first license violations that LD Holdings experienced, where a compliance officer violated LD Holdings for having dirty area, boxes, just kind of being in disarray? Is that
I
ring a
can't be
bell?
sure. I can't be sure, no.
And who was the person that gave you that information?
I don't remember.
Do you remember whether they were an employee of the bar or Revolution?
No,
Or,
I don't remember.
did you recuse yourself from the hearing that occurred after you made that report to the city, to the police department?
Did I recuse myself? I don't believe I've ever recused myself in any matters concerning LD Holdings, beside the one that's before us tonight.
And why did you recuse yourself from last week's hearing or this particular hearing tonight?
Upon advice from the city solicitor's office.
And is it your understanding that that has to do with your being the source of the information about Mr. Healy?
I'm going to object to any questions that relate to your communications with the city solicitor's office, because those are privileged communications. So I'm not clear as to what's being asked here, but if it relates to any communication you've had with the city solicitor's office, then those conversations are privileged.
Fair enough. Other than the information you provided regarding Mr. Healy, is there any other reason that you may be recusing yourself from this hearing?
Yes.
And what is that reason?
I received a video on Facebook Messenger of an alleged altercation that occurred on March 4th at Bar 74.
You received a video?
Yes.
And when did you receive that video?
I don't remember the exact date.
What, was it a month ago? Was it a week ago?
It wasn't a week ago.
It wasn't a week ago? So was it a month ago?
Probably right around there.
And who did you receive the video from?
Anonymous source.
What was the name of the Facebook account that provided you with the video?
There was no name on it.
How did you receive the video?
It was on Facebook Messenger.
So it was messaged to you on
Yeah.
Facebook Messenger?
Right.
So who was the party that sent you the message?
I'm not going to tell you that.
Why not?
I don't feel I need to tell you that at this point.
Well, it's relevant to the
I don't know how.
violation,
I
don't
don't
you
know
think?
how it's relevant.
Well, my client, the licensee, is before this committee for an alleged violation of having a license on a wall, alleged fight, alleged manager of record issue, and you're now the source of 3 potential violations. You've been presiding over these hearings. This is the first one you've ever recused yourself from, and now
Don't put words in my mouth, Counselor. Do not put words in my mouth.
you are not willing to provide the name of the party that provided
What I
this video?
did is, through the advice of City Solicitor's Office, given the information I gave them, their opinion was that I should recuse myself with the information that I received. I did so, because it may influence my decision. I did so, pure and simple.
You recused yourself from the last hearing. Did you have this video before or after the April 12th hearing?
Just for the
I
record.
recused myself from the
Commissioner
April
recused
12th.
himself April 12th, right.
I recused myself on April 12th,
That's why I'm asking. Did you have the video before or after April 12th?
before.
And you're refusing to identify who provided, well, first you testified you didn't know who it was. Then you testified that it was anonymous. Now you're testifying that you do know, but you're unwilling to tell us who.
At this point, right, and that's right. I'm not going to give you the name of the person that sent me that.
Was it Mike Renkricka?
I'm not going to answer that.
And when you received this video on Facebook, what did you do with it?
I then gave Secretary Wynn a call, and I also gave the City Solicitor's Office a call.
Was the licensee ever informed that you had received this video?
No.
Was the licensee ever informed that you had received information about Mr. Healy potentially not being the manager of record anymore?
I'm sorry, restate that?
Was the licensee informed that you had information about Mr. Healy potentially not being the manager of record?
Why would I?
Well, don't you think the licensee has an opportunity or deserves an opportunity to know the evidence against them in response
There's
to
no
it?
evidence. I told you I had received a phone call that stating that they believed Mr. Healy was no longer the manager. I then forwarded that information to Captain Webb.
And at the April 12th hearing, you may recall, Captain Webb refused to identify who provided him that information. Now we know that it
Not
was
sure.
you.
I recused myself. I'm not sure what was stated.
You didn't watch that hearing from the back room on the video?
No, the video isn't in the back room. You want to go take a look in there?
And now today, you're telling us that you refused to identify who provided you with a video.
That's correct.
Has Mr. Renkricka ever given you any information about LD Holdings, Bar 74, or Revolution before tonight? Or including today or before today?
No.
Specifically, back in March of 2017, you may recall that the licensee, LD Holdings, was violated for not having the license on the wall the day after it was picked up from the City of Lowell's Law Department. Do you recall that?
I do recall that.
Did you have any involvement in directing or instructing any city employee to go and check to see if the license was on the wall at that time?
I did not.
Do you own an interest in any liquor licenses in Lowell currently?
I do not.
All right, I don't have any other questions right now. Thank you.
That's fine.
I have some questions for the witness. You stated you saw a video.
I did.
What was on the video?
It was,
I've got a slight objection. I mean, I love the question, but is LD Holdings asking this video be introduced into the discussion?
I don't know, does the city have the video?
That's not relevant. The question is, are you asking I'm asking is, do you want to introduce it into the discussion?
The
Or do you
video
want to
that
go
was-
without it introduced into the discussion?
The video that was received by Chairman Descoteau?
Dakota.
Or the other one?
Descoteau? I'm not asking to introduce the video that Chairman Descoteau received from the unknown source.
I mean, you brought it up and tortured it. I'm not sure I want to see it introduced. I want to know what the legal office thinks.
Well, I was questioning the witness, he was questioning the witness, and the video came up, so I'm entitled to cross-examine, is that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
Right, thank you. What was on the video?
It was a video of a altercation that occurred at Pub 74, Bar 74, on the night of the question, which is March 4th.
When you say altercation, can you describe what you saw on the video?
Two fights going on. One a gentleman had gotten a bottle thrown, and had laceration and was bleeding profusely from his face.
Thank you, no further questions.
How do you know it was Bar 74 on the video?
How do I know?
How do you know?
That's what it was told to me.
By who?
I'm not going to give you that name.
Oh, okay. So did the video itself identify Bar 74 in it anywhere?
I'm not going to answer that.
Don't you think that's relevant to Chairman Howe's question? I mean, you're claiming now that this video was of an altercation inside Bar 74, but you don't have personal knowledge of that, unless the video says this is Bar 74, there's a sign in the video, something like that. So is there a sign in the video that identifies it?
Video, there isn't a sign, but anybody that looks at the video would know that that's definitely Bar 74.
And why is that? Are you familiar with the interior or something?
I do know the interior of Bar 74, yes.
And based on your experience with the interior of Bar 74, you believe that the video shows an altercation, two altercations in Bar 74.
That's correct.
And just so I'm clear, you visually observed someone hit in the face with a bottle and bleeding profusely.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Was that under oath? Did we get that testimony sworn in? Wasn't that a matter of practice before the committee?
No.
It is. Thank you, I'd appreciate that.
The testimony that you have given, you swear or affirm that it is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions for Chairman Descoteau.
The correct pronunciation is Dakota. by the way.
Descoteau, I apologize.
I'm also looking at item number 6. And I feel that I'm also going to recuse myself just because of what's transpired here tonight. I don't want to leave any doubt, even though we're only looking at a change of manager. It is concerning LD Holdings and prior, well, the present manager of record, which came up in discussion. So I'm going to recuse myself from items 4, 5, and 6. Can the minutes be noted that way? Secretary Wynn, please. And I'll leave the chair to Commissioner Krieger.
Coming back for 7.
I will not be back. I would ask you to, for a motion to adjourn. Great.
Commissioners, are we back on with respect to item number 4?
And item number 4.
We can waive the reading, but can you just remind me what item number 4 is?
Read item 4. Proceeding with agenda item number 4, Commissioner will now hear a hearing continued from meeting of April 12, 2018, on the allegations of misconduct as charged by William M. Taylor, the Superintendent of Police, in a communication dated March 5, 2018, against the restaurant licensee for all alcoholic beverages regarding the incident of March 4, 2018. The licensee of record is LD Holdings LLC. Business name is Bar 74 Lounge and Grill. The business address is at 76-78 Merrimack Street. The manager of record is David E. Healy. The owner of the LLC is Lauren DeSalvo.
That's not necessary, thank you.
Commissioners, before we continue the hearing, I just wanted to place on the record what had transpired on April 12th. Mr. Jacobs had indicated that he was in receipt of a police report regarding the incident that relates to item number 4 on the agenda tonight, and that he had a redacted version of a police report that he had received from the city solicitor's office, and it contained many additional redactions than the reports that we had and that the commissioners had. I had indicated that night on April 12th that we were not in possession of that, I'll call it an extra redacted report, and it didn't look like it came from the city solicitor's office as had been represented by Counsel Jacobs, but was faxed over from the police department. And it appeared then, and it appears now beyond question, that on March 23rd, 2018, the proper police reports with the proper redactions from Captain Webb had been emailed to Mr. Jacobs at that time. So he had had the correct version of the police reports from the city solicitor's office about 3 weeks before the April 12th hearing, but he raised the issue that he didn't have the appropriate report, and that's why the commissioners had adjourned the meeting to give him ample opportunity to get the correct report and to review it. I'm not casting any aspersions as to whether or not he had been mistaken, but clearly from the record, he had had the correct police report as of fax on March 23rd. So he had it 3 weeks prior to the April 12th hearing that was adjourned to tonight. I just wanted to place that on the record to clarify it.
May I
Thank you very
respond?
much.
Can I respond just briefly?
Briefly.
Thank you. So after the hearing, I did investigate what happened here. I had 2 separate police reports from the city of Lowell. One was sent to me by email from the law department, Mr. Wynn. The other one was faxed
I'm
to...
sorry.
Sorry? The other one...
Law Department, Mr. Wynn, or from Mr. Wynn?
Well, Mr. Wynn works in the law department.
Well, that's his physical location, but he's our executive secretary.
Okay, so Mr. Wynn faxed us the police report from the law department. We also received a copy of the police report from the Lowell Police Department directly. I did not represent at the last hearing that the police report I had was definitely from the law department once it was pointed out by Captain Webb that my copy had a fax number from the Lowell Police Department and his did not. I specifically said I cannot represent that. I assumed both police reports were the same. Why would I think there would be different redactions coming from the city of Lowell? There are, in fact, however, different redactions in the version that the Lowell Police Department faxed to our office versus the version emailed from Mr. Wynn. Those redactions do not appear to be dates of birth, social security numbers, or medical information. They mostly refer to a specific witness and statements that that witness made.
You're good now, though,
I am
right?
good now with the police report.
All right.
Thank
In
you.
the previous meeting on the 12th of April, we had testimony from the police. Do we need to go through that again?
Is this for the fight, the May 4th
The fight.
alleged fight?
Yeah, that's item number 4.
And is the officer, the arresting officer of Mr. Boykins and Courtney Vermette, is he present?
Uh,
Sorry, I don't
Captain
know.
Webb, is he present?
Summons? Is that Officer Kingan? Yes, sir. Sorry. I do have a couple of quick questions for Officer Kingan. If you don't mind. Thank you.
I believe the officer was previously sworn.
Can leave that in there, I can just lean forward.
We had a problem with the recording.
Oh, okay.
If you're not real close, it doesn't get it. So I just wanted to clarify, so you were the officer who was on scene on March 4th, 2018, involving an alleged fight between Courtney Vermette, someone named Troy Boykins, and others, is that right?
That's correct.
And where was the location of the scene when you came upon it?
So the location of the scene, when I came upon it, was 29 Central Street, outside.
Outside. And is that near the old court bar?
It is.
Is that almost directly in front of it?
It is.
Do you know if a violation was issued to Old Court Bar for failing to maintain decorum in front of its location?
I'm not sure.
And did you happen to witness yourself any incident that occurred inside Bar 74 or Revolution or directly in front of Bar 74 or Revolution?
On that night, no.
The report indicates that someone, that a manager at Bar 74 misled you about an incident occurring inside the bar, is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. Was that, do you know what report I'm referring to?
I believe it's the one for March 4th, correct?
Correct.
All right, that was a security staff member, Mr. Foreman,
Okay, so you spoke to Mr. Foreman?
briefly.
All right, and is it your testimony that Mr. Foreman, I'll strike that. What was your testimony, what did your report say about Mr. Foreman's, what Mr. Foreman said?
Well, essentially what it said was, while myself and another officer were speaking to Mr. Boykins, Mr. Foreman had come over and inquired if there was any problems, and we had asked him if there was any kind of fight or altercation inside Bar 74, and he indicated that there wasn't.
And then did you have an opportunity to question Mr. Boykins at all?
We spoke to him at that moment, and ultimately, we informed him that he was free to leave, but he would receive a summons in the mail.
And did Mr. Boykins tell you that he was an employee at Bar 74?
He did.
And did you investigate whether that was accurate or not?
No, I did not.
So today, you're not sure whether he really is or was ever an employee at Bar 74?
No, I'm not sure. I've seen him there multiple times, but at the time, he said that he was an employee, but he was not working on that particular night, but I'm not sure if that's factual or not.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions. What summons was issued to Mr. Boykins?
I'd have to refer to the report, but it was related to an assault.
Okay. And was Mr. Foreman truthful with you when he said there was no fight that occurred inside Bar 74?
Based on the statements of victims and other persons involved, I would have to say no.
All right, thank you.
I have a few questions. You were asked if a citation or something was issued against the old court. Was it the old court that called in the dispute outside?
It's my understanding that security staff from the old court or some employee of the old court called in the altercation that they observed in front of their establishment.
And your experience as a police officer, if witnesses are saying a fight occurs in Bar A, and then Bar B calls it in, does Bar B get a citation?
Not typically, no.
I have no other question.
Does anybody else have a question?
One quick follow-up. In your experience, if a fight occurs directly in front of a licensed bar, does that licensee typically receive a violation?
No.
Thank you.
Captain Webb, do we have anyone else to testify?
I think for this agenda item, that's the only officer.
Mr. Jacobs, do you have any other people you'd like to?
I do. For this agenda item, I'd like to ask Troy Boykins to answer some questions.
State your name and address, sir.
Troy Boykins, 165 Smith Street.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Boykins, do you recall an incident in Lowell, Massachusetts on March 4th, 2018, involving you, Courtney Vermette, and a small group of people?
The only thing I remember is getting arrested for people pointing at me.
Okay, and where were you when you got arrested?
I was on the corner of like that. It's like across from Dunkin' Donuts, that little club over there, bar, whatever it's called.
In Lowell?
Yes.
Were you in front of Bar 74 or Revolution?
Previously, before that arrest.
But at the time that, when you say arrest, were you put in handcuffs or something?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were held by police for a certain amount of time?
Yes.
All right. So, when you were held by police in handcuffs, were you in front of Bar 74 or Revolution?
No, it was like a little bit down the street from there.
Okay. And while you were in police custody, did you tell police that you were an employee of Bar 74 or Revolution?
No, I said I used to work there.
And what about the incident itself? Were you inside the Bar 74 prior to that?
I didn't see no incident in there.
Okay. You don't recall anyone getting hit in the face with a bottle or
No.
punched or kicked in the face?
No,
You don't recall anyone crawling under a table to escape a pursuing crowd of people?
no.
Okay. What about out in the street in front of Bar 74 in Revolution? Do you recall any incidents happening that night in front of those bars?
No, as soon as cops came, I was out. People started pointing at me, and then they just came to me. Then I had to get summoned to court.
And did the police on the scene, did they ask you where the incident happened? Or did they ask you if an incident happened at all?
Yeah, they asked me, and I told them, no, I don't know.
Did they ask you where an incident happened?
I don't remember if they did that. I was drinking a little bit.
Okay. So on this particular night, you were a patron at Bar 74?
Yes.
And how long ago did you actually work there? How many years ago?
It was a couple.
A couple years ago?
Yeah.
Under a different owner?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Boykins.
Yep.
Don't sit down just yet, Mr. Boykin. Does anybody have a question? So, you were hit with a fist, hit with a bottle, kicked? Were you in any way assaulted?
No.
The police just handcuffed you.
Yeah, because people pointed at me.
They were punching at you,
No, pointing.
pointing at you. And what were they pointing at you for?
They were saying that I hit people or attacked people, but I didn't.
Is it possible you did?
I didn't. It's not possible.
And where were these people from?
I don't know. Maybe that bar that was over there. I'm not sure where they came from.
If I might, you had been at Bar 74,
Yes.
and then you left and were just walking down Central Street?
Yeah, it was over. Everybody was going home, and I turned the corner, and then I see cops coming. Then people stopped pointing at me. I was walking away. Then they came and got me.
And you had not been in any fights at all?
Oh, I didn't even see the fight.
But you said you had been drinking that night?
Yeah, I was drinking.
Okay. But not involved in any fight?
No.
No, the people just, do you know why they picked you out?
I didn't get arrested.
No, I understand. No, I believe no one got arrested. They were gonna,
There was people saying me, and then there was people saying that I didn't do nothing. Like, there was more people saying I didn't do nothing.
yeah. So
And I don't even know
in
them.
the end, the police have just requested a number of complaints
Yeah,
against both sides.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. So when you worked at Bar 74, your job was a bouncer?
Yes.
And isn't that what you told the police officer, that you were a bouncer at Bar 74,
Said I used to
but
work
you
there.
weren't on duty that night?
No, I said I used to work there.
And you didn't see any fight that night, whether inside or outside Bar 74? There was
no fights.
no fight, no altercation whatsoever?
Nope.
And you didn't see any blood? And you didn't see any bottles being tossed?
No,
And
definitely
you
not.
didn't see any punches being thrown?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Attorney Jacobs,
Yes, sir.
do you have anyone else?
Mr. Foreman. Thank you, Mr. Boykins. You can sit down. Thanks. Mr. Foreman, can you state your name for the record?
Scotty Foreman,
Hey, what's your address, Mr. Foreman?
25 Nesmith Street, Lowell, Mass.
So we're going to swear this witness in?
Mr. Foreman, do you swear or affirm that the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Do you recall an incident on March 4th occurring on Central Street
On Central Street,
or near Central Street and Merrimack Street?
I've heard of it, but don't recall.
Do you recall that police responded to some sort of incident that night?
Yes,
And you saw the police out on the street, is that right?
yes.
And what did you do?
I went over to lend my...
Excuse me, can you speak more closely into the microphone?
Sorry about that. Is that better? Okay. I went over to lend my assistance, as I always do, because I work with these officers 3 times a week, normally a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. When we let out, I normally go over and check in with them, and then when we have most of the people cleared, I go over and check in with them again before, we go back inside.
And on this particular night, did you go over to the police and talk to them?
Absolutely.
And you heard Officer Kingan's testimony. He indicated that you told police that nothing happened inside, and that you had a conversation about that. Did that happen?
I did not have a conversation with an officer. I don't recall. I have a good rapport with him. I'm not saying he wasn't there, but I don't recall speaking with him. I don't recall speaking with any officer. I know there was another blonde, kind of tall officer that was actually in the forefront that had him detained. And when I went over there, Mr. Boykins said, let them know nothing happened pertaining to him. And I went over and I said, nothing did happen. And then I went over to, not him, but there was another blonde officer. I went over to him and I said, you know me. I said, if you have any questions, come talk to me. Because like I said, I have a good rapport with them. And that was it. Nobody ever came over to talk to me. Nobody ever came over to the bar. That was the end of it.
No one specifically asked you if anything happened inside that night?
Mr. Jacobs, can you step a little closer to the mic?
And no one specifically asked you if anything happened inside the bar that night?
No, not an officer, because as soon as I went over there, like I said, Mr. Boykins, spoke up and said, let them know, because they already had him detained. And he was like, let them know, nothing happened. And I told him nothing did happen with this particular person. That's the whole thing. I said nothing happened with this particular person.
And that wasn't even in response to a question? You were just
No.
making a statement?
Absolutely.
And that's the only thing you said, and you walked back?
Aside from the fact that I pointed at him, I told him, you know me, and if you have any questions, you can come over and talk to me. No, that was it, and I walked away.
And why do you have a good rapport with the Lowell Police Department? Something happened in the past?
On several different occasions, I have physically, put myself in harm to assist them when they were waiting for backup.
There was
Or more than once.
There was one specific incident that happened, right, where there were multiple people assaulting an officer, is that correct?
Absolutely,
And did you back up that officer?
absolutely, until his backup came. And then the next day, I wasn't working, but I believe a officer, I don't recall the name or who it was, but a officer came by the bar to personally thank me for helping them. And that was the first time, and there's been probably 2 or 3 times, but that was the one that one of them came over and commended me for actually giving them some assistance, so.
And just to be clear, that incident with that officer, did that have anything to do with Bar 74 or Revolution?
Absolutely not, it was actually down the street a ways.
On a typical night, on a typical evening at Bar 74 and Revolution, are you present?
Yes,
Which location are you typically present in?
in the bar.
And can you kind of just quickly tell us, what is the procedure for ending the night?
Well, what we do is around 1:25, we'll turn on the lights because we're required to turn the music off exactly at 1:30 or before. And then at 1:30, we start making our rounds to get the people out safely. We open the door so that's visible. Like I said, we turn all the lights on, make sure everything's visible. There's usually maybe 2 to 3 cruisers outside at the time. Usually 1 or 2 in the front and 1 on the side street. And then, like I said, as we're letting people out, I'll run over real quick, shake hands or, say what's up, and then, go back over to doing my job. And then once we let people out, like I said, I'll go over again and say, are we good, we're clear? And they said, all right, we're clear, sidewalk's clear. And then I'll run back over, we bring everybody in as a group, and then we shut the door and lock the door.
And you do that virtually every single night that you're open?
Every single night. I want to note also that we are the only bar in Lowell that does pat down people, not because we have to, but because we unfortunately are fighting a stigma of these past years of the violence that has happened before the previous owners. So we make it a point to let our patrons know that it is safe to come into our establishment, not because we have to, but because we want to.
And how many security personnel are on staff on a typical night in Bar 74?
Depending on the night, between 4 and 6.
And that's in addition to other staff, right?
Absolutely.
Wait staff, bar staff, manager, all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't have any further questions, Mr. Foreman, thank you.
Yes, sir.
How long have you worked at the bar?
A couple of years.
Couple of years?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Were you there under the previous ownership?
Yes, I was.
Are there any other questions?
I have some questions.
Please.
When the bar is closing, where do you typically stand?
Well, it really just depends. I'm either at the door, greeting people, letting them know, have a nice night, get home safe, or inside getting people. It depends. I'm everywhere, to be honest with you.
What about the night of March 4th? Where were you standing at the closing?
Honestly, I don't recall. I mean, we're talking a couple months ago. I worked, 4 or 5 times. I honestly don't recall.
Could you have been at the door?
Could I have been at the door? Possibly.
And how many people approximately were there that evening?
Honestly, I don't recall. I wouldn't say we're at capacity or packed or anything like that, but Like I said, I don't recall, honestly. I don't want to give any incorrect information because I don't. It was months ago.
Was it more than 50?
Again, as an estimate, I would say so.
If there's an altercation in the bar, what are your responsibilities?
Our responsibilities, number one, is to secure the patrons, to make sure that we get everybody to diffuse the situation, and if there are, and get the people out safely that are causing an altercation.
Is there anything else that you're responsible for if there's an altercation?
If there's a physical altercation, then yes, we are required, we are required to notify the police, yes.
Is there anyone else in the bar that evening that had that responsibility as well, if there's an altercation, that they're required to notify the police?
Absolutely.
So who else was there that evening?
David Haley.
Dave Daly?
David Haley.
David Healy?
Yes.
And who was he?
The manager on record.
Who else? How many employees were there?
Again, you're asking me questions from months ago.
Well, what night was this? Was
You
this a
figure-
Sunday night?
You figure, I believe it was a Saturday night, so you figure maybe 4 bartenders or 5, 4 to 6 security, somewhere around there.
And to your knowledge, are all of those individuals, if they see an altercation, what's the procedure?
The procedure is to notify the manager of record, at which time, if there is a physical altercation, then he is to notify the Lowell Police Department. That is my understanding.
I don't have anything further.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just do a quick follow-up?
I have a couple of questions.
Oh, let's stand by. Go ahead.
Happy to let you go. You can go first.
So, Mr. Foreman, you were the head of security on the evening of March 3rd into March 4th?
I do work security there, so I wouldn't.
Who's in charge of security?
I do handle a lot of the duties as security, so yes, I would presume the title of security manager.
And when you talked about 4 or 5 other security personnel, these are bouncers, is that?
Security staff, yes.
Okay, and Mr. Boykins is one of them?
Absolutely not. Mr. Boykins is a patron.
And
I would like to note that as long as I've worked there, which has been a couple of years, Mr. Boykin has never been a security guard there.
And on that evening, were you aware of any altercation that occurred in or nearby the Bar 74?
No.
You weren't aware?
When I actually spoke with the officer, well, not the officer, but when I spoke with Troy, I wasn't aware of any altercation that had happened. I had heard about it after the fact.
When after the fact?
Maybe later that night, maybe? I don't recall.
Well, this occurred early morning hours of March 4th, that
Right.
Sunday morning.
Well, then maybe later on that morning, maybe, or maybe the next day.
Okay, so you didn't observe anybody injured, anybody who was bloodied, any bottles on the ground? You didn't observe any of that?
No, sir, because the alleged altercation that you're talking about, I'm assuming happened around the corner. So no, not at all.
That's your assumption?
That is my understanding.
From whom?
That's just my understanding of the chain of events, sir.
Who gave you that understanding?
Nobody gave me that understanding. It's my own
You
opinion.
mean,
Based
you have
upon,
an
based
opinion
upon,
as
ba-
to
based,
where-
based
wait, wait, wait.
upon,
You have an opinion as to where an altercation occurred without knowing where it occurred?
well, first of all, I'm saying it's my opinion. There's also a police report saying that there's an alleged incident that happened around the corner. So again, this is my opinion of allegedly what happened.
Okay,
sir.
so you didn't speak to any living person about any altercation that occurred that morning?
No.
So you just rendered an opinion that an altercation did occur, but you have no knowledge of whether the altercation occurred or not?
No, I don't.
I have no other questions.
Yes. Please.
Okay. On the night of the in question, that being, I believe it's March 4th, you said Mr. Healy was present at the bar?
Yes.
The manager of record was present at the bar, and what was his function on that night?
In my opinion, it was a manager of record. He's a manager, he manages the bar.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to have a redirect here of some sort? Yes.
Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Foreman, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you, on March 4th, inside Bar 74, did you witness anybody get hit in the face with a bottle?
No.
Did you witness anybody get kicked in the face?
No, sir.
Did you witness anyone crawling under tables to escape a pursuing horde of attackers?
No, sir.
Regarding Mr. Healy, you said you've worked at Bar 74 for a couple of years. Is it your understanding that Mr. Healy has been the manager of record for Bar 74 since at least November 2017?
That is my understanding.
And so, is it safe to say that pretty much every night that Bar 74 has been open since November of 2017, you're scheduled to be there, is that correct?
For the most part, yes.
And on those nights that you were there, did you personally witness Mr. Healy also present for most of those nights?
Yes, we've worked together.
And was it your understanding for most of those nights that you were present and Mr. Healy was present, that Mr. Healy was acting in the capacity of manager of record?
Yes.
Did Mr. Healy ever tell you that he had switched his position?
No, not to my knowledge.
Did he ever tell you that he was just a security guard?
No.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
So, Mr. Jacobs,
Yes, sir.
do you have Mr. Healy?
Well, at the last hearing on April 12th, the committee said that it was going to subpoena Mr. Healy.
Mr.
Excellent.
Healy? Could you approach the microphone, sir? Yeah, I don't think so. Step up and give us your name and your address, please.
David Healy, Lowell, Massachusetts.
I should swear him.
Might as well, since we've started this trend.
Mr. Healy, can you raise your hand? Is the testimony you're about to give, can you affirm or swear that it's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Healy, are you the manager of record?
No.
When did you give up the position of manager of record?
November of 2017.
I see. Does anybody else have a question?
Yes.
I do. Go ahead. Yes.
When you gave up the position, did you notify your employer?
Yes, it was mutual, they knew.
And who did you notify?
Ownership,
Ownership, was that Ms. DeSalvo?
her and her husband.
Who's her husband?
His name is Ty Andrews.
Ty Andrews?
Yes.
And it's your understanding he's part owner of the premises, of the bar?
I know that they are related. I do not know what his take is in the bar, if he's owner or if it's,
And was that by mutual agreement that you were leaving?
yes.
Why did you leave?
I got a new job.
The last hearing, I think it was the April 12th, by the way. I was not here on April 12th. I just want to put it on the record that I checked with the solicitor, and she stated that I could hear this. I did watch the video. Apparently, on April 12th, I believe it was Commissioner McCarthy had asked management to provide your pay stubs, and I'm wondering if that's been done
Pay stubs for which job, ma'am?
for the job with Bar 74.
There was no pay stubs.
You didn't get pay stubs?
No, ma'am.
How were you paid?
Cash.
Cash?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you receive a 1099?
No, ma'am.
I have nothing else.
Mr. Healy, on the night of the alleged fight inside Bar 74, that'd be on March 4th, I believe, March 4th, were you present in that bar as the manager of record on March 4th?
No, I was not. I was called in and asked if I would like to fill in for security for that position for that night.
For
And I
that
said
night?
yes.
They
So
called you?
I was a security guard in that aspect that night.
You acted only as a security guard?
Yes, I was asked to come in and cover a security position that evening.
And did you realize that you were still on paper the manager of record?
No,
You went there and you got paid in cash, I'm assuming, for that night's work,
yes, sir.
acting in a security capacity,
Yes, sir.
not as manager of record.
No, sir.
Thank you.
I have some other questions. Did you receive a W-2?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Jacobs. Everyone stay close to the mic.
Feel that seat for me? Sorry. It's just a little easier with all this stuff. Sorry. Thank you. All right, Mr. Healy, back in November of 2017, you testified it was mutual, they knew it. But you didn't actually say that you notified them. Was your notice to the owners, whoever it was, of LD Holdings, was your notice verbal, by email, by text message, by letter?
Verbal.
So you notified LD Holdings that you were no longer going to be the manager of record verbally, and that's the only action you took to displace yourself from the manager of record position, is that right?
Correct.
Do you recall the application process for the manager of record position?
Yes.
You recall that you had to provide your ID, you had to sign a document, you had to give proof of citizenship, you had to go through a background check. Do you remember all of that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember coming to the hearing in January of 2017 before this committee when the license was transferred and you were appointed as manager of record?
Vaguely.
And do you remember telling the license committee that you understood the rules and the regulations and the duties and responsibilities of being a manager of record in Lowell?
Yes.
And you understood also that being the manager of record imposes a certain amount of liability on that person. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you know all of that in November of 2017 as well?
Yes.
Let's cuddle up to the mic.
Do you want him to repeat his answer? Or? No. Did LD Holdings provide you with any sort of response accepting your supposed resignation, oral resignation?
Yes, we were speaking as close as the two of us are speaking right now.
Did you happen to text message with Ms. DeSalvo or her husband or anyone else at LD Holdings?
When?
Back in November of 2017 or before. Did you have a practice of text messaging back and forth with Ms. DeSalvo?
Sure, yeah.
What was your compensation? How much were you paid as a manager of record?
It depends. Usually it was like $80 an evening, but if I had to work more hours, I would be compensated more for my time.
And what was your pay when you were converted supposedly to a security guard only?
It would be on the same, I believe it was between $60 and $70, But if there was events or that I was asked to come in a little bit earlier, then they would take care of me and my pay would be more or less, depending on how long I was there.
Is it safe to say that your pay did not change between November of 2017 and May of 2018?
No, it is not safe to say.
You testified that you were brought in on March 4th, 2018, to work security. Did you work at Bar 74 at any time between, say, December 1st, 2017 and March 4th, 2018?
Yeah, I believe I filled in on maybe 2 or 3 different occasions.
So on only 2 or 3 other occasions, other than March 4th, you appeared.
Attorney Jacobs, I can't give you a total of amount of days that I've worked, and they called me in and asked me to work.
Well, okay, so fair enough. It's an approximate number. But 3 is pretty low between November 2017 and March 4th of 2018. So you're saying maybe about 3 times you worked at
No,
Bar
it would be more than that.
More than that,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Approximately how many times do you believe that you worked at Bar 74 as a security guard only? Between November 17 and March 4th of 2018?
Maybe about 7 to 10 times.
Okay. And did you ever notify the city that you had resigned your manager of record position?
No, because it was my understanding that there was a manager coming in right on my heels. And in November, the time when I was leaving, is approximately the time for, close to the time for renewal. So I figured the new person coming in would be taking over.
And who was the new person?
There was a gentleman by the name of Robert Turno, I believe his last name is.
And you believe that he was going to take your job?
Correct.
But you never received any paperwork, any resignation documents approving or confirming that you were removed as manager of record?
No, sir.
And you didn't take any action despite your understanding of the liability you were carrying?
No, sir. Like I said, I thought that the person coming in right behind me was going right on the license, seeing as how it was right about the time for renewal.
Okay. Do you recognize those? I'll let you read through them for a second.
Can I make notes on this, Attorney Jacobs?
Mr. Healy, do you recognize these text messages?
Yes, I do.
And are you Dave?
Yes, I am, Dave.
Okay. Are you Dave identified in these text messages?
Yes.
All right. So were you doing inventory on February 23rd at Bar 74?
All of these here are me helping because I've been in that building for so long. I know how to do things. They asked for my help. I helped.
Okay, so am I correct then? On February 23rd, you were doing inventory at Bar 74?
No, because I asked and it never came through. I never did do it.
Well, let's turn to the text message from Friday, February 23rd on page 2, right at the top there.
Okay.
Okay. It says, yes, I am doing inventory and just fixed the taps.
I
It doesn't
can
seem like you're asking to do inventory. It says that you're doing it. Is that right?
Here, what I'm talking about here is inventory for the evening of what they're gonna need for the evening.
Inventory of what?
Alcohol.
And then you wrote, and just fixed the taps. Do you mean the beer taps?
Yes.
Okay. The next message, it says, can I get in there tomorrow so I can pull everything apart behind the bar and do a complete audit, top off the bottles so I know to the drop exactly what we have? Did you write that?
Yes, because.
And was that a complete audit of the liquor?
No.
What bottles were you topping off?
The alcohol bottles, they asked for my help, and this was the way I was helping them.
Okay. What about at the very bottom of the page, February 24th, Saturday, says there was a clerical error with the money. I found the problem. The deposits are fine. Were you the one counting the money that night on February 24th?
Yes.
And you found a clerical error, is that correct?
Yes.
And you reported that clerical error in the deposits to Ms. DeSalvo, is that right?
Her husband?
Okay. Now let's go backwards to February 5th, February 6th, on the first page. Right at the bottom. It says, this is a message, I assume, to Ms. DeSalvo's husband then?
Correct.
It says, fire department tomorrow, 10 a.m., just a reminder.
Yes, I was reminding them because the fire department had my number. So they called me and I said, listen, this is what you need to do because the fire department is coming.
Okay. Are these the kinds of things that you did before November 2017 when you were, as you say, the manager of record?
Yes.
And so some of those same things you were continuing to do after November 2017?
Only when I was asked for help.
Do you recall an incident involving the, in February of 2018 involving the ABCC?
Yes.
And do you recall the ABCC asking to speak to the manager of record?
No, I just remember speaking to them.
Okay, isn't it correct that the ABCC asked for the manager of record and you presented yourself to the ABCC investigator as the manager of record for Bar 74?
I told them that I was a manager of record. It could have been in any tense you want to put it in, previous, before, after, however you'd like to take it. As a matter of fact, that night, I don't believe that was probably, I think, the first night that I had I was asked for help that night since November when I had left. Or close to there.
What night was the first night you were asked for help?
That night from the ABCC, because I remember they asked for paperwork, and I said, well, they keep the paperwork over here. So I went over and I looked at the paperwork, and I noticed that the paperwork wasn't filled out from the time I had left in November up until the present.
What paperwork?
The crowd manager sheets. Because they asked for those, and I could not find them anywhere.
And do you recall an incident on March 4th?
You'll have to refresh my memory.
Were you present at Bar 74 on March 4, 2018?
Possibly?
So the night wasn't memorable enough to remember any kind of incident, I guess.
If you asked me, like if there wasn't
You can't
something.
remember whether you were there
I don't know
or
what
not
day
on
of the
March
week
4th.
it was,
I didn't
what
ask
day
the
of the month.
week, I just asked a date. Do you recall an incident on March 4th? You don't recall?
I remember a lot of incidents, I don't remember what day they took place on.
Okay. What's the last incident you recall?
I don't know which one that would be.
All right. Who came to you to ask you to write a statement about your manager of record status?
Lowell Police Detective.
And what was his name?
Forgive me if I get this wrong, Detective Barge Darka, I believe.
Okay. And what did he tell you? Where did he find you? Where did he find you? Where were you?
He called my cell phone.
All right. And what did he tell you?
He asked me if I had time to go to the station and speak to him.
And was that the first time you had talked to anyone at the Lowell Police Department about your manager of record status?
No.
Who did you speak to about it prior to that?
I believe it was Captain Webb.
Okay. And what did you tell Captain Webb?
That I am not the manager of record there.
Where did you meet Captain Webb somewhere?
No, we spoke by phone.
So he also had your cell phone number?
I guess so.
And do you have the same number today that you did back in January?
Yes.
Are you living at the same location?
Yes.
Has Ms. DeSalvo been trying to reach you?
She texted me once.
Did you respond?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I didn't feel like it.
What did Captain Webb tell you when he questioned you about the manager of record status?
He asked me if I was still the manager of record for Bar 74.
And you responded and you said you weren't. Is that the extent of your conversation?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, well, pretty much.
Yes,
So that's all you guys talked about?
I believe so.
All right. And do you recall whether that was before or after March 4th of 2018?
Off the top of my head, I apologize, I do not know.
Do you know who Mike Renkricka is?
Yes, I do.
Are you friends with him?
Yes, I am.
And when was the last time you hung out with Mr. Renkricka?
We're friends, but we do not hang out, as you would say. We were more like a work relationship.
So you knew him from working at Bar 74?
Correct.
He also worked there with you, correct?
Correct.
And was he terminated?
No idea.
You don't know if he was terminated from Bar 74?
I don't know if he quit or if he was terminated or what.
Do you remember any issue involving his work at Bar 74?
No, I do not.
Did you hang out with Mr. Renkricka on April 10th of 2018?
I don't believe so. No. No, I did not.
What's the last date that you actually worked at Bar 74 in any capacity?
I can't give you an exact date, but it's either the very end of February or the beginning of March.
Isn't it true that you ceased working at Bar 74 the day Captain Webb came to ask you about your manager of record status?
No, I don't believe so.
Did you stop working before or after Captain Webb came to speak to you about your manager of record status?
Before.
So by the time Captain Webb came to talk to you, you were done at Bar 74?
Correct.
Okay. Before you stopped working at Bar 74 in early March, did you remove the license from the wall?
No.
You didn't remove it from the wall, wrap it in a coat, and shove it on top of the refrigerator?
No, I did not.
When you were there in late February, early March, do you recall seeing the license, the liquor license on the wall?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Well, I remember seeing it. What the exact date that I remember seeing it is all the licenses and certificates are all together.
Up on the wall, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then suddenly, the week that you stopped working at Bar 74, that license is no longer on the wall, and Officer Kingen goes to specifically look to see if that license is on the wall, and it's not. Is that right?
That's a question for him when he's already testified that he didn't know what happened to the license? Good argument, but
That's not my property, why would I take it?
all right. Mr. Healy, do you use Facebook?
Yes, I do.
Have you ever sent any messages to Mr. Chairman Discoto?
No, not that I believe.
Have you posted anything to your Facebook page since November of 2017?
Yes.
You have? Have you posted anything since December of 2017?
Since when?
December of 2017.
Have I made a post to Facebook?
Let's all be at the microphone, please.
Have you posted anything to your Facebook page since December of 2017?
Sure.
Would you be surprised to know that there's not a single post on your Facebook page since November of 2017, no check-ins, no posts, no messages, since you claim you stopped being the manager of record at Bar 74? Would that surprise you? Mr. Healy, did you sanitize? Yes, sir. Oh. Mr. Healy, did you sanitize your Facebook page and your Facebook check-ins so that your dates of appearance at Bar 74 wouldn't be public?
No.
Does it surprise you that there's not a single post since November of 2017?
No, it doesn't surprise me.
You testified a moment ago that you have posted to Facebook.
Yeah,
You were pretty active prior to November 2017, weren't you?
we were required to post about the bar through Facebook and social media.
Exactly. Exactly, Mr. Healy. And yet, there's not a
Excuse me, Mr.
single...
Jacobs, I hate to interrupt you, but are you saying this is Dave Healy Jr.'s Facebook page?
Mr.
Can
Healy,
you
is that your
explain
Facebook
why
page?
the picture's different?
That's Mr. Healy's Facebook page, correct, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
have a-
Who's the person in the picture?
LeBron James.
Who?
LeBron James.
Okay.
So, Mr. Healy, just to continue, you are correct that you were required to post things about Bar 74 on your Facebook page, promotional stuff, right?
Yeah.
And yet there's not a single post since November, not one, not even to a friend, not from a friend, since November of 2017, when you claim you stopped working as manager of record. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Do you recall being present at City Hall on April 12th, just a couple weeks ago?
Yes, I came in right at the end of the meeting because I was watching it on TV.
Where were you watching it on TV?
Right down the street at a friend's house.
Who was the friend?
Dimitri Papoulias.
Did anyone ask you to come to City Hall that night?
No.
You came here entirely on your own?
Yes.
And did you hear the communications during that meeting about the committee's desire for you to be present?
Yes, and that's why I started making my way here.
And why didn't you come upstairs?
Because I was on my way up, I saw the two officers, I spoke to them for a second, and then by the time I was coming up here, it was all over and done with.
Did you send a text message to anyone letting them know you were on your way? Like, did you text Captain Webb telling him that you were coming here that night?
No, absolutely not.
Did you text Officer Kingen or Brodowski?
Absolutely not.
Has anyone warned you about continuing to work at Bar 74?
Has anyone warned me?
Yeah, has anybody warned you against working at Bar 74?
No.
Nobody.
No.
Did anyone pressure you to write that statement claiming that you were not manager of record from November 2017?
No.
In your statement, you stated, "I believe the license was left in a folder in the bar." Is that correct?
Yes.
And why did you believe that?
Because that's where a lot of the paperwork is kept in folders around the bar area, in the back.
But you testified that there's a wall with all the licenses and certificates on it, right?
Yes.
So why would the license that was on the wall be in the folder under the bar?
Because the way that they have it set up now is with Velcro on the wall. The music and the bass is so loud that sometimes they fall, smash all over the place. So sometimes people pick up one of them and stuff it in the folder and leave it behind the bar.
And when's the last time that happened?
No idea.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Mr. Healy, going back to the questions I had of you, March 4th, you worked as security on that night. That's what you stated earlier,
Okay.
that on March 4th, you worked as security. Do you have memory of that night now?
Yes, yes. I haven't done anything but security from November 2017 up until whenever the last day I worked was.
And on March 4th, when you worked security, did you see a fight in the bar?
No, I didn't. My job was identification, and I was out front, and it was the middle of the winter with the door shut.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Healy.
Thank you very
You can
much.
hang loose
Would you like
until
me
we
to
get
stick around?
this wrapped up, please.
Would you like me to stay?
Yes, please. Mr. Jacobs, did you bring the pay stubs that were asked for?
We did not bring pay stubs.
I see. Do you have anything else to say?
I do. So back in January of 2017, this committee voted to give LD Holdings and Ms. DeSalvo an opportunity to try and make these two licenses work. These licenses had a long history with prior owners, both men, who couldn't make it happen. They both had a lot of fights. A lot of them were involved in fights. Violation after violation after violation. But this committee gave my client an opportunity to turn it around. Two people on the committee voted against that, and the Lowell Police Department opposed the issuance of those licenses. And within 1 day of that license being picked up at City Hall, there was a supposed random standard compliance inspection performed at Bar 74 and Revolution, which resulted in the very first violations. All paper stuff. License wasn't on the wall yet because it was underneath the counter, just been picked up the day prior. I don't know how many people would know that the licensee had just picked up their license the day before, but the committee is one of them. The police department's probably one of them. The other violations that day were place was dirty. There wasn't a sign saying "We ID." A handful of paper violations, all minor. But for those paper violations, my clients received 3 days suspension. Only violations they'd ever had. So within a month or two of having this license, they're already being violated for very minor things, relatively insignificant, and I bet if you walked into most bars in Lowell, you'd find 1 or 2 of those things there as well. Then in April, we had the promoter. There was the unlicensed promoter violation. Someone had been going around doing pub crawls. Now, there were 4 or 5 bars involved in that pub crawl. LD Holdings has 2 bars, Bar 74 and Revolution, so they were pulled in twice for that. But for some reason, even though the advertising for that pub crawl identified every single bar that was present, that bar wasn't included in the violations. So you had the Smokehouse, the Blue Shamrock, Dudley's, and then at that time, Mill City Pub and Mill City Ballroom identified as the pub crawl participants. But not all those bars were violated and brought before the license committee. Why is that? But my client was brought in before the license committee twice. That was the second violation, another paper violation for a promoter regulation that is unclear and ambiguous, and which this committee recommended to the city council be revised. The other incident that happened that same time period was a young woman who fell asleep in a bathroom, woke up, went home. No injuries, not hurt, she fell asleep. My client was given a suspension for that as well. Then on April 19th, there was an allegation by some random person that he had been attacked by 4 black men. Nobody could find these black men. Police showed up, did an investigation. The young man had no visible injuries. That's in their report. My client came before the committee and was violated again. There was a fight in front of the street involving people that had nothing to do with my client. Supposedly someone had a knife. My client got violated. Still no injuries. At that point, a motion was made to reduce my client's hours of operation. So at this point, all we have is a handful of paper violations, the girl passing out in the bathroom, and this alleged fight in the street. And my client gets brought before the committee to have their hours of operations reduced, and they are reduced for a month, but there were no incidents, so it was returned to normal operation. So from May 1st, 2017, all the way to February 2nd of 2018, my client did not have a single violation, not one. But somebody got fired in November of 2017. It wasn't David Healy. It was somebody else. And all of a sudden, information starts flowing from this pipeline of people to the police department. And what happens? My client is the first bar to be visited for underage drinking, right? Guess who ran that underage drinking party? Guess who organized it and assisted in promoting it? The guy who was fired. Then we have the after-hours violation, another paper violation. My clients allegedly had music playing at 1:35 a.m. when the closing time or the turnoff time for live music is 1:30 a.m. Had it been recorded music or radio music, 1:45 would have been acceptable. Officers are up in Revolution and they hear the supposed live music in Revolution. They violate them for 1:35. Then they claim that the music they can hear downstairs is also live music, but they weren't downstairs, they were upstairs. And that's at 1:44, so they're violated for that too. Paper violation. No injuries, nobody's hurt, nothing. Then it was the smoke detector. I don't know why the city of Lowell Police Department is bringing building code violations to the committee when the very building inspector responsible for that area of the law didn't issue a violation, but were brought before the committee for that. And then on March 4th and March 6th, you have the license on the wall, paper violation. I cannot believe that this committee honestly believes that my client would allow that license to not be on the wall after having the prior violation and knowing that she's being scrutinized, for better or worse. But that coincides with Mr. Healy talking to police and his last day, apparently, working at Bar 74, and my client finds that license wrapped up in a coat on top of the fridge. Seems pretty plausible that someone set them up, because according to testimony here, last week and today, Sergeant Murray instructed Officer Kingen or Brodowski to specifically go to Bar 74 to see if the license was on the wall. That was the specific instruction. How would they know that? My point is this, okay? My client came in wanting to turn this place around and wanting to do a good job. But for whatever reason, elements that did not want this license to transfer seem to have been involved in making sure she doesn't continue to hold this license, including anonymous people who give reports about managers no longer being of record, of licenses not being on the wall, and it's just not fair. It's also unconstitutional. But despite that, despite all the forces against her, she had not a single violation since May 1st. Granted, we've had hearings since then, but they were things that happened before that. So it may appear to the committee that there's this long list of things, but it's really not. 9 months, not a single violation. No one from LD Holdings establishments has been hospitalized. Not a single person. But there are other bars, same time period, who've had underage people hospitalized, overage people hospitalized, had hundreds of people overcrowding their bars. One had a stabbing, and the manager of record still holds that license. A stabbing. The other manager of record was before this committee on March 22nd, and the chairman of the committee told him, "You're doing a great job, you've turned this place around." Well, guess what? I went back and looked at every single violation, every single hearing since then. They have more than my client. I mean, paper violations aside, right? License on the wall, dirty rear room. But other than that, this other licensee's got more issues than my client. Just so happens that is the same person who's reporting to the police confidential information received from an informant whose name he can't remember. Then it's Dave. Then he gets a video from somebody else on Facebook. First he asks city councilor if he can reveal the name. Then when he's given permission, he can't remember it. And then he refuses to give it up. So if you're the licensee, honestly, put yourself in the position of this licensee. Would you think that there are forces in the city that are trying to take your license from you for one reason or another? And what makes you different from the other licensees in downtown Lowell? What's the one thing that makes my client different in a material way from the other people who own licenses and have managers in downtown Lowell? She's a woman. Why can't my client get a detail from the city of Lowell? My clients emailed the city of Lowell asking for police details. Captain Webb stated at the last hearing that it's been the April 27th hearing that he's had difficulty getting officers to take a detail at Bar 74 in Revolution. Why is that? Why would cops not want a nice paid detail at a bar in downtown Lowell? And how many other licensees have a problem getting details? So again, put yourself in my client's position. The issues that are here, the actual issues on the table today, are minor. I mean, they really are minor. Everyone's testified that there was no fight. Even David Healy, the person who says that my client, that he resigned from manager of record, and clearly there's bad blood there now, even he says he was there and doesn't remember any fight. Mr. Foreman was there, doesn't remember any fight. The officers didn't witness any fight. Mr. Boykins, who was a supposed perpetrator or victim of that fight, doesn't remember any fight. And the issue with Mr. Healy, I think, should be looked at with a scant eye, because there's a lot of stuff going on there that I don't even think we know about. We don't know who provided the information to Chairman Descoto because he won't tell us, or he can't remember. Captain Webb wouldn't tell us last hearing on April 12th. And we have text messages showing that Mr. Healy was doing the exact same types of things that he was doing as manager of record, even though now he claims that he verbally resigned his position. I mean, if you're the manager of record and you accept the responsibilities of that position, don't you have an obligation to notify your boss in writing that you're resigning, even if that was his intent? Or don't you have a duty to notify the city? How's my client's, my client can't read his mind. If he's showing up and doing audits, checking the drop in deposits, reporting when the fire department's coming, I don't care what was said, wouldn't you as the licensee believe this guy's still manager of record? No letter, no notice, no text message, no email saying otherwise. And then I wonder how many licensees the city has put the effort in to bring into the police department, get them to give a statement about them not being the manager of record. And then when my client goes to transfer the manager of record, which is the last thing on the table here, to Mr. Palladino, she's not allowed because of some gaming violation that occurred when he wasn't even there. That is actually the
Wait,
last.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that last statement.
Mr. Palladino applied to be the manager of record for Bar 74. And he appeared last week on his application. But it was not approved. It was pushed off until today.
Makes sense, okay.
Because the police had reported that in 2015, there was an allegation or a violation that there were gaming machines. You know, those machines with the cards on them and you play them to win points or money or whatever. That was the violation, is my understanding. But we have letters from the employer that he wasn't there then. So I don't see any reason why, given that Mr. Healy, whether he intended to resign or it did resign or whatever the status was, we know now that he's not the manager of record. So my client has a gentleman who seems to have a really good background, a lot of history managing, not necessarily manager of record, but a lot of history managing.
Mr. Chairman, if I might interrupt, I think that's an issue for separate on the agenda, for which we had asked for 1 week to get some further information. I think we've got that information. I think that's not pertinent to the argument on these violations.
Fair enough.
If I might. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then the only thing that we're reviewing right now is the license on the wall,
We're not.
the manager of record, and this alleged fight.
Fight.
And I think we've stated our position on that. I don't know what other evidence.
Mr. Chairman, if I might again, there are 2 separate hearings. One is on the failure to maintain order and decorum, failure to notify the police department, and misleading police in an investigation. That's what we're dealing with, I think, at this time. We'll go next to the failure to display.
Right. We're
and the
dealing with
failure
one
to submit
thing.
a name of a manager. We held them as 2 separate hearings.
Except there was testimony that was brought in as to the manager of record for Mr. Healy.
All right.
To both.
Let's move on and wrap it up, because we have 2 more hearings, and
Well,
the
I was
reporter, it'll go past his bedtime.
I was speaking towards all the topics on the table for tonight, because it's just more efficient time-wise. But my client needs to be given an opportunity to succeed at this location. 9 months without a violation is a really good chunk of time. I don't think any of the owners, managers of record prior to my client taking over had a 9-month stretch without a single violation. And I don't think there's any licensee in the city of Lowell that's perfect. But if you remove all the paper violations, my client has an excellent track record. And if the other bar from March 22nd that supposedly did a great job turning around that place when drugs were being sold out of it, allegedly, if my client, if that manager has turned that spot around, given what they've gone through in the last year, then my client is a model licensee. And I don't see why my client should be treated differently from the other managers or owners of record. And the last point I just want to make is we do need to remember there are 2 licenses here. So if you go back and look at all the violations and you line them up for what happened to Bar 74 and what happened to Revolution, Bar 74 has minimal violations. But every time my client's in here, it's as if it's Bar 74 and Revolution. So it's doubled every single time. And because she has 2 licenses, you see her face and my ugly mug more often than you probably want to. But it's 2 licenses. And I think that the committee needs to keep that in mind. Because if you split all the violations up between the licenses, it looks a lot better. than even your perspective might be. And with that, I will close, and I hope that the committee will not take drastic action, will consider the punishment that it has provided to other licensees for similar conduct. Thank you.
Well, as the acting chairman, I was one of the ones who voted for Mr. Silva's licenses, so.
You were.
I personally reject the suggestion that we're dealing with sexism and racism here. Does anybody on the commission have a comment?
I'd like to also reiterate what the chairman said. I was one of those votes. I was very impressed with the presentation that was brought to us, and I was very hopeful that we were going to see a real turnaround. But I don't discount paper violations. When you're taking over a bar, you take on an awful lot of responsibility. And that's from making sure there are signs on the wall, to making sure the patrons are served correctly, and all the way up, maintaining peace in there. But each one of those is mandated by law or regulations of the ABCC. And I understand the degree of severity in them, but they are all necessary parts of being the manager, the owner of an alcoholic beverage establishment in the city. As I said before, I voted for this license, so thank
Would you mind if I responded to that directly? Is that okay?
you. It's up to you.
Stand by.
I-
Stand by.
Fair enough.
I was the third vote to approve the license, and I take exception to your comments that there's some secret deal here between the License Commission and the police to try to destroy Ms. DeSalvo. When we gave her that license, we said, are you going to move up here? And I don't think she's moved up here. And then you ask us to put ourselves in her position. I will put myself in her position. I'm an employer, and I employ people, and I pay them over the table, and I pay taxes. So we've listened tonight. The only issue before us is there was a fight at the bar, whether there was a fight or not. Now, the police report is very strong. We do not have any witnesses to the fight inside the bar. But we've listened for an hour about how Mr. Healy hasn't been the manager since November, and you've been impeaching your own manager. We've listened to an hour about how Mr. Foreman was there, and he testified that Mr. Healy was the manager. Then Mr. Healy comes up and says, I haven't been the manager since November. And then we hear your closing statement, which was very eloquent, that all of these violations, this board has some ulterior motive to destroy her business. And we've sat here and listened to it when the real issue, you're diverting the attention from the real issue. Do I believe a fight occurred there? Yes. Do I think there's enough evidence that we should find a responsibility? I'm not so sure. But I know the fight didn't occur in the old court, and I've been on this board for a year and a half, and the old court hasn't been here once. So I was going to say that I find all of the responsibility, I find responsible, except I do not think that the doorman was misleading. I found his testimony not that credible, because I feel that he was outside and the fight could have happened inside, but I don't agree with that. The others, I'm still unsure. I'd like to hear from my other commissioners, but I do take exception to this litany of charges. And by the way, that girl that passed out in the bathroom could have died, and you glossed over that like it was nothing. That was an egregious violation. She was underage. She was left there. Her friends didn't know where she was. So please don't bring that up again. Thank you.
If I may, Counselor, I did not vote for the license. And the reason I didn't vote for the license is because of the absentee management. I don't understand how you can be an owner of a business here in Lowell and live upstate New York and think it's going to operate properly. It has been nothing but problem after problem after problem over there, and it's still continuing. Thank you.
So Commissioner Howell let you off easy by saying it's only been an hour that we've been at this. So, yes, I'd like to second Commissioner Howell's point. Leaving a woman in a stall where she may pass out, fall down, throw up, and choke to death. You know, I've got 5 principles that I work on with this. My principle number 5 is no Darwin events. And that just kind of reminded me of when Roy Rogers' adopted son drank too much too fast and died in Germany. So, you wanted to come back at us one more time. Please keep it quick.
I will. Commissioner Donahue, it's not that, that I don't believe that the paper violations aren't representative or aren't important. I do believe that they are important. But in this particular case, I think there's 2 things that you have to take into account. One, how many licensees have had the police go in the day after they pick up their license and violate them for a host of paper violations? That's one. 2, I do think there's some element of at least information being passed on about paper violations like manager of record status. And I do believe that demonstrates some intent to get the licensee to be violated. And 3, this licensee never got a chance to get off the ground. I mean, when she got that license, she was full of promise, hope. She was poured a ton of money to renovate that entire Revolution upstairs. Tons. Within 1 day of picking up the license, she gets 4 or 5 violations for nonsense. I think if you were that person, you would say, what is going on here? And the other thing, I do believe we have witnesses inside Bar 74 that night. There's 3. There's Mr. Healy himself, there was Mr. Boykins, who was allegedly involved in it, and Mr. Foreman. About impeaching Mr. Healy, it's a 2-way street. If the committee's going to credit his testimony about him not being the manager of record, then it's got to credit his testimony that he didn't witness a fight. But you can't have it both ways. Either don't believe him for any of it and see what else is out there, or believe him for all of it, and consider the testimony with the other evidence. And also, I agree with you that passing out in the bar is a serious violation. I'm not denying that. I don't think my client ever denied that. She thought it was serious too. She couldn't believe that it happened. It was one of those chance things. Everyone had cleared out. You may remember, the girl asked to go back inside to use the toilet. And instead of going back up to Revolution, she went back into 74, which had already been cleared. So it was just a perfect storm of crappy decisions and events. But my point is, I just want the committee to be fair, because other licensees have had so much more serious stuff. That girl wasn't hospitalized in our case, but another licensee has had 2 hospitalized girls. Didn't get a served day of suspension for those. 1 day, held in abeyance for 6 months. That's on top of overcrowding by hundreds of people and assorted other little things. So that's all I'm asking for is consistency and fairness. And I think my client deserves that. Thank you.
Can I just make a couple of points, if I might? Just a couple. First of all, playing the gender card I thought was inappropriate. Also, discounting the other non-paper incidents that have occurred at this location, including the underage drinking, plays up to Commissioner McCarthy's point that somebody who's an absentee owner is not having control over what's going on in their property and under their license. It's clear that there was a fight here. It's telling that counsel for the the licensee is not interested in viewing the video, which shows the fight occurring within the property. There were people who were injured and hospitalized as a result of this fight. So to discount it and just give a litany of history of paper violations, and that's what we're gunning for, I think is inappropriate and doesn't really paint the entire picture of what's transpired with respect to these locations. Thank you.
Okay, back to the commission. Do we have any thoughts? Okay, Martha, you're thinking. You can sit down, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we've listened for a number of hours to the alleged allegations brought by the police department, and the officer wrote a thorough report. Unfortunately, that report is only what was taken by a number of people that were on the street on that night. The only one that we know of came in and pleaded the fifth. So we don't have any actual people saying that they were in Bar 74. Now, on the night of the fight, they said they were in Bar 74. So we're in a problem area, I think, of whether or not there was a fight. I believe in my heart of hearts that there probably was a fight in there, but does the evidence point to that? And that's what I'm wrestling with at this time.
I believe that there was a fight in there, but, you know, the evidence I don't think is that strong at this point.
Based on the evidence that we have, I'm going to make a motion, and I commend the police department for their work in trying to put something together. And I'm making a motion that these allegations be dismissed, the ones for the March 4th incident.
Commissioner Howe?
I'm not seconding that.
Commissioner McCarthy?
I'll second that.
All right. All three items. Okey-doke.
All three items. All three items.
Let's do the roll call.
With the, you
I'd
want
like
a
to
roll
speak-
call?
I'd like to speak on the motion.
Please.
I find the police report very credible that 8 to 10 suspects were attacking Mr. Ortega with fists, beer bottles, beer pitchers, and shod foot. I find the police report credible that Mr. Ortega crawled under a table, ran out the door, and was pursued by 8 to 10 suspects, and also that a female punched in the face 3 times and was hit over the head with a beer bottle. Unfortunately, because none of those victims are here to testify, then I am unable to state with specificity and enough to vote that there were these violations. I just want to speak on the motion to dismiss.
Roll call.
Commissioner Krieger?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarthy?
Yes.
Commissioner Howe?
Yes.
Commissioner Donahue?
Yes.
Dismissed.
Hey, let's go on to the next item before we turn into pumpkins.
So, proceeding with agenda item number 5, This also hearing continued from April the 12th, 2018, on the allegation of misconduct as charged by William M. Taylor, Superintendent of Police, in a communication dated March 7th, 2018, against restaurant licensee All Alcoholic Beverages Restaurant for the incident of March 6th, 2018. This licensee being LD Holdings LLC, doing business as Bar 74 Lounge and Grill, 7678 Merrimack Street. David E. Healy, manager. Lauren DeSalvo, owner.
Mr. Jacobs, would you like the whole thing read into the record?
No, sir, that won't be necessary.
Do you agree that there was no license displayed?
I do not agree.
You think there was a license displayed?
I do think there was a license displayed.
Where was it displayed?
I believe that Mr. Healy even testified that when he was there, that last week of February or early March, the licenses were all on the wall. I do believe that at some point in time, between then and when Officer Kingan went by to specifically identify whether or not a license was on the wall, that someone removed it, wrapped it in a coat, and stuck it above the fridge.
So you agree there was no license on display when Officer Kingan came by? Yes, that's what you said. Whose coat was it?
I don't know.
Does anybody know? Who?
Why don't you come up?
Lost and found.
So we can get it on the record.
Your name, please, and your address?
Sean Bryan, 39 Lawson Road, Westford, and I'm the manager on record for Revolution upstairs.
Okay, so it was from lost and found? We don't need that.
Yes, I swear. Yes, the code had been retrieved from the lost and found. It had been there for some time. It didn't
Thank
actually
you.
belong to anybody. We can't identify an owner.
All right. So, based on your testimony, there was no license on display?
No, not my testimony. That was Officer Kingan's testimony. That's
Yeah,
based
but,
on
and
his.
you agreed with him just now.
I don't have personal knowledge of whether it was or not, so I can't agree or disagree. I'm just telling you the circumstances behind it.
Officer, would you please come up and tell us the quick story?
Right, it's Officer Borodoka and not Kingham on these allegations, right?
No, good evening.
Was the license openly displayed where it could be easily seen?
It was not.
Thank you.
Did you see, were there other licenses and certificates on the wall?
There was, yes.
And the only one, or how many other licenses and certificates did you think were on the wall? Approximately.
3,
3 other ones?
I believe. Yeah.
But the license certificate for Bar 74's liquor license just wasn't there.
It was not there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, did anybody else have a question? Okay. So that takes care of the did not display the license, which I think is a fundamental issue. You ought to display the license. As a license commissioner, I have gone back to institutions several times to get them to finally display the license. Because if you can't do that, how do I know you're going to do anything else? All right, the second item is failure to submit the name of a manager. So we have Mr. Healy leaving in November, and we didn't get a new manager of record for months and months?
Well, you have Mr. Healy claiming for the first time to the committee or to police in March of 2018 that he was no longer the manager of record, and he claims that that was done as far back as November 7, 2017. However, we showed that, according to his own testimony and his own text messages, he was doing work consistent with a manager of record. He was doing audits, he was topping off liquor bottles, he was doing counts of cash and deposits and reporting discrepancies. He was reporting on when the fire department was coming by. I also believe was Mr. Foreman's testimony that he's worked there for 2 years. He was there since November 17, and that every time he's worked, Mr. Healy was the manager of record. I also note that the ABCC, when they went to Bar 74 on February 2nd of 2018, they asked for the manager of record, and Mr. Healy reported to them as the manager of record at that time. There's no written notice.
Sorry, that part is not clear, that he identified himself as the manager of record from the testimony in the last hearing.
He did.
Excuse me, I have a question for the solicitor. Can we just agree that the testimony from the last hearing that's germane to this case can be accepted for this?
Yes, I was hoping that.
Thank you.
And I thought they were taken together, frankly.
Back to you, Mr. Jacobs.
Well, I believe Mr. Healy did testify that he did present to the ABCC as the manager of record. His issue was whether it was then, now, or present. I forget his exact wordings, but he said, well, I was the manager of record. I guess it's a little bit of semantics, but no matter what, the consistent testimony is that the ABCC looked for the manager of record. Mr. Healy presented himself. Whether he told the ABCC that he was previously the manager of record but wasn't that night, I guess only the investigator of the ABCC is going to know that. But he did put it in his report.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Go.
The last time you were here, we asked you to bring in the work records.
Correct.
We don't have them. Are there any?
There are work records for Mr. Healy.
Payroll records?
So look, there are not pay stubs for Mr. Healy. My client had provided him. My client uses an online payroll processor, like most small businesses do these days. The employee has to register themselves. So the employee gets emails saying, register, here's the link, go here, register, enter your information. My client tells me that he received numerous emails and just simply never did it. He's not complaining that he wasn't paid, so he definitely was paid, or else he'd be claiming that he wasn't. But there's not going to be a pay stub for it.
Mr. Healy testified he was paid in cash, so
That's what he said.
that the payroll service, he gets paid in cash through the payroll service?
He never registered for the payroll service, which he should have done.
So
And-
it's his fault that he's being paid in cash?
No, it's not his fault, but it's the reality of what happened.
Does anybody else have anything else germane to these two items?
I'll just point out that whether or not he had pay stubs or not doesn't impact whether he was manager of record for that time period.
Now, that's something else for us to decide. And of course, it partly turns on whether he was the manager of a record or he was a good guy helping out because he was a little smarter than other people. Was he involved in hiring and firing as the manager of record?
I don't know, but I would think that doing alcohol audits on multiple occasions, fixing the taps, reporting when the fire department's coming, checking the deposits, and having another employee testify that he understood Mr. Healy was the manager of record the whole time, I would think that that's sufficient to demonstrate that Mr. Healy was the manager of record. Mr. Healy has no written statement, not a text message, not an email, nothing, to indicate that he supposedly just up and resigned in November of 2017. He gave no reason.
I thought he gave a reason, but yeah, go ahead. No, you.
What was it?
In the text messages you provided to us, one of them says, "Can I get in here sometime during the day tomorrow?" Is that a manager of record who can't get into the building without
Yeah, you had asked that last time, and I apologize. I meant to find out.
He has no key, he has no access unless, it sounds more like what the chairman said. He's a good guy that helps out once in a while.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty certain that Mr. Healy was not a good guy helping out of the goodness of his heart.
But I would think a manager of record would be someone that had full access to the building to get in, do the, get ready for every night.
You're absolutely right. You're right.
I'm sorry.
I want to agree with you.
I don't have the answer to it, but she does.
I'm sorry.
Since we're doing it this way, let's swear in.
I do. Lauren DeSalvo. I agree with you, Mr. Donahue, and Dave had a key. He had a key to the building. In November, there was an instance when he was accused of taking money out of Sarah Canellis's tip jar. She's one of my best bartenders. So there was a period of a few weeks where he no longer had the key. And Scotty was given those privileges because he has been nothing more than trustworthy. So that would explain why he didn't have the key at the time, but he was still doing every other job function. And if he resigned, he didn't tell me. I didn't know about it. And if I did know about it, I would have filled that position immediately.
I would just add, when we did learn on March 22nd from Captain Webb that he was making the allegation that Mr. Healy was no longer the manager of record from his perspective, we immediately started looking for someone else. And we've already submitted the application for Mr. Palladino. So there's no reason why my client would not have sought another manager of record if Mr. Healy had resigned and told her. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, my client knows that she's under scrutiny. Why would she just continue to run the business without a manager of record? It just doesn't make any sense. Logically speaking, why would she put herself at that simple risk, obvious risk?
I have some questions for Ms. DeSalvo. So you were here when Mr. Healy was testifying, and he testified that he informed you and your husband
Yes.
in November
Yes.
of 2017 that he was leaving. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
Did he get another job?
From what I understand, he wanted more hours, daytime hours, so that's why he chose to work two stores down at Jimmy John's. So he wanted to have more hours, so that's why he worked there.
Before November of 2017, how long was he the manager of record?
Since February 8th of 2017, since I got the license.
And what were his duties and responsibilities?
Specifically,
Yes.
he was doing inventory. He was making sure that everything with the POS system was in line with what the inventory showed. He did some numerous reports, security reports at the end of the night. We have binders full of them. And they continued into November. I'm sorry, will you have them? Until March. He continued to do those functions.
Was he there?
Schedule making.
Was he there every night?
Every night we were open, yes.
So didn't he testify that he left in November and he had only been back a few times from November to March of 2018? Did he testify to that?
I believe he did, yeah.
And so you disagree with that?
Absolutely,
So he was there every night,
yes,
but we wouldn't have a record of it because there's no payroll records.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Does your husband work at the establishment?
No, my grandmother is terminally ill, and when I'm not able to be there, he's there. I make sure that a family member, if I'm not there, is always involved in watching the place, making sure that there is management since I am an absentee owner.
So he is there on occasion?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
One more question.
Sure.
So, Mr. Healy was being paid in cash, is that reflected in the books?
Yes, it is.
So you could provide that at some point?
Sure.
But we didn't. Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Can I just clarify before we go there? I just want, because we're going to get so far away. Mr. Healy did testify initially that he was only there for a few days, but then when I pressed him on it, he said, no, I was there for a lot more days than that. So.
I believe he said 7 to 10 days. So, the key was taken from him in November because he stole money from a bartender.
Correct. Not just once, it was more than that.
So he stole it a number of times.
Allegedly, yeah.
And so the key was taken from him to the establishment for weeks, you said.
Yes.
But you kept him on as your manager of record?
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he stole money from other employees?
Yes, it wasn't proven, so it was just,
But you took his
people
key?
telling me. Correct.
So you gave some credence to the
Yes.
allegation?
Yes.
Was part of his duties to hire or fire servers,
No.
bartenders?
No.
Who did that?
Me.
Were there timesheets kept for employees and when they worked and when they didn't work?
Roughly, yeah. I know how many hours he was there weekly.
Him and other employees?
Absolutely, yes.
And you have those records?
Yes.
You didn't bring those?
No.
Okay.
And do you have schedules, employee schedules?
Yes, I do.
Anybody else have a question? Are you done, Mr. Jacobs?
I am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You can sit down. Okay, what's the wish of the commission? Go ahead.
In this matter, I find that in both allegations, there is a sufficiency of evidence for us to make a finding of failure to display a license and failure to submit the name of a manager, which I think is perhaps one of the most, is a very, very serious allegation, because and I believe I've said it here before, management is lacking in the bar, and I think that's what causes many of the problems here, whether it be the license on the wall or the under 21. We have to have good management, or you're not going to have a good running bar. So for that, I think that there is a need for some kind of action to be taken as a result of the finding of those two findings. Pardon me.
Do you have a recommendation, or would you like to wait?
I'd like to wait to hear from the rest of the commissioners, but I find that there's sufficiency of evidence for myself.
I agree with Commissioner Donahue. I feel there's more than sufficient evidence that both of these allegations were proven. To come before this board and tell us that a key was taken away from the manager of record because there were allegations that he stole money from a tip jar, and then he comes in and says that he left in November. I find Mr. Healy's testimony credible, and I do not find Lauren DeSalvo's testimony credible in any way on this. And I agree with Commissioner Donahue that both violations were proven.
I also believe with Commissioner Donahue, I agree with him. This is what I've been saying right along. There is no control to this establishment. It's just the wild, wild west over there. And we got to do something because something seriously is going to happen. And it's time to, I think we heard tonight, and I believe Mr. Healy, by the way, I think he has been out of there since November of 17. And I think somebody else has been acting as the manager over there. And we haven't been told that yet, so, thank you.
Does anybody have a sense of where we need to go? Are we going to suspend the license for some period?
I was just reviewing what we have on Bar 74, and actually, under the official, from what I understand, violations, the major violation was failure to maintain order and decorum back in April of 2017, with a 5-day suspension of license. And then there was a hearing in June of 2017, at which time we voted to decrease the hours of operation. It is done for a month and a half, and then it was returned. I think my major concern is management, to make sure we have a running operation. I'm going to make a motion in this matter that under the failure to submit, that finding of responsibility, recommend that there be a 10-day suspension of license.
Second.
Anybody else? Then you, okay, 10-day suspension.
That was just for the failure to display?
Well, it will
Excuse me, I need to
include
make
both
sure
of
that
those
Ryan
two
knows.
allegations.
No, it's both.
Oh, it's
It'd
both?
be We're combining both. They're finding responsible of both, and I recommend a 10-day suspension.
So
Hearing nothing else.
Ryan, you got 10 days, would start when?
Well, with all due respect, Commissioner Krieger, do you want a roll call vote on that motion? Commissioner Donahue has made the motion to suspend the license for 10 days for violations of failure to display the liquor license in accordance with Regulation 1.13, and also failure to submit the name of the manager in accordance with Section 1.15. So there is a second to that motion by Commissioner Howe. Does the commission wish to have a roll call vote on that?
Well, I'll have to ask the commission, because I don't care. Does the
Yes.
commission want a roll call?
I
Yes.
think that's the first thing that we need to do.
Commissioner Krieger?
When would this go into effect? What's your calendar?
I believe it would have to be at least 10 days.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Krieger, to answer the question, under the circumstances, this will be appealed probably to the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. So in preparing a notice of decision, and with the consult with the law department, would have to review it before it's sent out to the license holder. I would suggest commencing the 10-day suspension to be June 1st. Excuse me. Commissioner Krieger.
Yes.
Commissioner McCarthy.
No.
Commissioner Howe.
Yes.
Commissioner Donahue.
Yes.
3 yeas, 1 nay.
Let's move on to item number 6 then.
Proceeding with number 6 on our agenda, we have a matter continued from our meeting of April the 26th for consideration of the application by LD Holdings LLC, doing business as Bar 74 Lounge and Grill, all alcoholic beverages restaurant licensee at 7678 Merrimack Street, for change of manager to Paul F. Palladino of Linfield, which had been, I noted, continued from April 26th.
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
I am. lot of papers over here that are now out of order. Mr. Palladino, would you mind coming up to the-
Good evening, everybody. My name's Paul Palladino,
From?
Linfield, Massachusetts.
While Mr. Jacobs is getting the papers together, have you read our rules?
I have read your rules. I've abided by your rules. There have been a lot of changes made at Bar 74 as we speak. I've been there for 5 weeks. We've just got through painting the place. As far as cleanliness, I'm a freak for it. It's all done. I'm handling presently the scheduling, ordering of alcohol. I'm on the premises most of the time. If I'm not there, Scotty's there. Scotty and I work very close together. There will be changes made there.
Do you have a key?
I do have a key.
Oh, I'm sorry. I defer.
Here, I do, right here.
Thank you.
Questions?
I have some questions. Why did you leave the Lowell Lodge of Elks?
It's an appointed position, Ms. Howe. Every year, an exalted ruler picks to who he wants to run the place. Of the time of that incident, I was there one month. What happens is in April, they appoint the new exalted ruler. The new exalted ruler, I'm an employee at will. The new exalted ruler picks his bar manager. He kept me for a month. He did not, offer me a new contract, and that was the reason. He took over. He was the one with the machines. He's been banned from the Elks for life. He's taken some money, but that's here nor there. But everybody that's written a letter about the Elks for me was my past boss and the secretary. They both know me, so.
When you say incident, what incident are you referring to?
They had the gambling machines. Poker machines, they had them off to the side.
I think there's a mix-up here, because he's talking about before, and this is just left, you mean the...
How did you meet Ms. DeSalvo?
There was an ad online. I fulfilled the ad. I met with her several times. We discussed the position. She discussed what she expects of me. I told her what I could do and think to help the club be better. I think we really work well together. I've met her whole family. I've met her mother and father, so on and so forth. So I will be on the premises. I guarantee you that.
How long have you been working there?
Now, 6 weeks.
So when did you see the ad?
March 23rd or 6th. It was on Indeed.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Did you reply to the email about getting your pay?
I did reply to my email. I have been paid on direct deposit. I have no problems with it, and I filled out every form that she requested me to fill out.
All right, Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So these letters, the second page letter on the Lowell Lodge number 87 Order of the Elks letterhead is from Paul Baylieu, who is the who is the just past recent exalted ruler. And then page 1, Eileen Savory. She was a bartender and I guess secretary at the Elks Lodge at the time that the gaming incident occurred. Both of them clearly state that Mr. Palladino was not employed at the time that incident occurred. And I would also just point out that he was just an employee. He wasn't the manager of record. He wasn't the owner. He had no control over the premises or, you know, what goes in there, what furniture, what items are in there, so.
Question.
ahead.
Before you worked at the Elks, what did you do?
I was a bar manager, Brayburn Country Club for 25 years.
Thank you.
You're a bartender at Brayburn Country Club for 25 years? Is that what you just said?
Yes, ma'am.
And your application says from 2004 to 2011.
That's correct. I was there as a lead bartender, and I was also managing for a long period of time, well, at least 25 years.
So why doesn't your application say that?
I didn't put it on there. I don't know why I didn't adjust it.
Who filled this out? Who filled this out? It's the application, it's your,
I believe I filled that out. I think. I have to look at that.
Does the question say the last 10 years? Isn't that last 10 years?
it says, please provide your employment history for the past 10 years.
Yeah. So that would be why it doesn't go back 25 years.
The question was, where did you work before the Lowell Lodge of Elks? Did you work at the Crown Plaza?
I did. I worked nights at the Crown Plaza as well.
Why did you leave there?
Better opportunity.
And the better opportunity was with the Lowell Lodge of Elks?
Correct.
And then 2011 to 2012, you worked at Boston College, where at BC?
That's how I did that was through Brayburn Country Club, the Alumni Association. Most of the members of Brayburn went to Boston College. They needed help at the stadium with all the events, so I helped out.
Thank you.
What's the sense of the commission?
I make a motion that we approve the application.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
So voted?
We need a roll call.
Commissioner Krieger?
Yes.
Commissioner McCarthy? No. Commissioner Howe?
Yes.
Commissioner Donahue?
Yes.
3 yeas and 1 nay. This application will be...
Thank you.
Attorney Jacobs, the application for change of manager will be forwarded to the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission tomorrow.
Sorry, what?
The application for manager change will be forwarded to the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
And Mr. Palladino and Ms. DeSalvo, I wish you both well. We don't want to see you here again, but wish you success from here on.
I just want to promise you guys I'm going to work very hard to make this right. We haven't had, knock on wood,
As I
an incident or anything whatsoever.
We need management.
I'll take care of it, I promise.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're counting on you to take care of it.
I promise you.
You guys skated this time.
I'll make it work.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? We're not doing a roll call. All in favor, say aye. Aye, all right. We're adjourned.
I didn't bring it up because I didn't think it was going to be relevant at all, but
He's a pretty good guy. I don't think,
it seemed like it, so I didn't think it was going to alter anything, so I didn't want to make it easy.
well, I
They
appreciate
were
that.
tired of me asking questions.
Thank you.